Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into something truly special as we celebrate the monumental 85-year life and career of a legitimate professional wrestling giant, Dory Funk Jr. Let's just jump right in and explore how one single person managed to leave such a massive, indelible mark on an entire industry. To really understand the kind of man we're talking about today, we can turn to the words of former wrestler B. Brian Blair, who spoke on behalf of the Cauliflower Alley Club. It's hard to find the right words to say goodbye to a man who became a mentor, a leader, and a dear friend. Hearing that, you quickly realize we aren't just talking about a character on a television screen, right? We're talking about a revered leader. Blair actually grew up watching Funk wrestle, and his tribute captures the immense, deeply personal respect the entire wrestling industry holds for Dory. He was a man who commanded respect simply by being himself, both inside the squared circle and out in the real world. Just to ground our timeline for a second, it was on August 4th, 2026, that the wrestling world lost this absolute legend. Dory passed away peacefully under hospice care at the age of 85 in Ocala, Florida, which had been his home for decades. The news was confirmed by his wife, Marty, and actually it is super important to note right up front that Dory and Marty were married for 40 years, together for 46. She was his partner not just in life, but in his post-in-ring career, which, as you'll see, was just as impactful as his championship days. But before we get to his time as a master trainer, we've got to understand where this incredible journey began. So to understand the legend, we really have to look at his foundation. Dory was born Dorrance Ernest Funk in 1941, and he grew up in Amarillo, Texas, right on the family's famous Double Cross Ranch. His father, Dory Funk Sr., was already a legendary wrestler and promoter, so Dory Jr. and his brother Terry literally grew up in the business. It was in their blood. Dory Jr. made his debut in 1963, and the two brothers quickly became the cornerstone of what we now call the Funk dynasty. In fact, Dory Jr. and Terry hold an unbelievable distinction. They are the only brothers in the entire history of the sport to each hold the highly prestigious NWA World Heavyweight Championship. 1,563. Let that number sink in for a second. That is the sheer, uninterrupted number of days that Dory Funk Jr. reigned as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. For over 4 straight years, he was the undisputed face of professional wrestling across the globe. To put that into perspective, this is the second longest uninterrupted reign in the rich history of that championship, sitting only behind the legendary Luthez. It's a milestone that requires just an unimaginable level of endurance, skill, and absolute dedication to the craft. So how exactly did he hold that title for so long? Well, listen to this assessment from renowned wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer. He called Funk the perfect champion for that 1969 to 1973 era. Why? Because Dory didn't just win. He made literally everyone he stepped into the ring with look incredible, completely regardless of their skill level. Dory brought a legitimate college wrestling foundation from West Texas State right into the professional ring. Because of his technical mastery, he was the ultimate argument for professional wrestling as a legitimate, highly demanding athletic contest. He didn't just play a wrestler on TV, he was a pure, masterful athlete. Let's look at the nuts and bolts of this defining championship run. The era officially began on February 11, 1969, down in Tampa, Florida, when he defeated Gene Kiniski. His weapon of choice? The spinning toe hold. It's a signature submission move that was actually introduced to the sport by his father, Dory Sr. During this reign, he found his absolute greatest rival in Jack Briscoe. Get this, the two men shared the ring an astonishing 160 times between 1966 and 1983. So what finally stopped this seemingly unstoppable champion? Well, on May 24, 1973, in Kansas City, he lost the title to Harley Race. But that title change was actually forced because Dory had been badly injured in a truck accident back on his father's Double Cross Ranch. Now, you might think losing that title would slow him down, but it was far from the end of his story. Zooming out on his career reveals an evolution defined by unprecedented longevity. We have that peak NWA run starting in '69. Then, exactly as that reign ends in 1973, he immediately pivots and makes his debut in Japan, opening up a whole new global frontier. Fast forward to 1986, and he's performing on the grandest stage in America at WrestleMania 2. And incredibly, his final match doesn't happen until August of 2024. That is a career spanning more than 5 decades of active, high-level, in-ring competition. Just wild. That 1973 debut in Japan, that was a real game changer. It turned Dory Funk Jr. from an American legend into a true global phenomenon. He spent decades working for All Japan Pro Wrestling, becoming one of their most trusted and beloved foreign stars. While he was over there, he captured the NWA International Heavyweight Championship 3 separate times. He went to absolute war with Japanese icons like Giant Baba, Jumbo Tsuruta, and Toshiaki Kawada. And he definitely didn't do it alone. He and his brother Terry formed one of the most dominant tag teams on the planet, winning titles everywhere from Florida and Los Angeles to Puerto Rico, and winning All Japan's highly prestigious Strongest Tag Determination League 3 times. The man truly wrestled everywhere. He had a run in the World Wrestling Federation in 1986, wrestling as Haas Funk, and actually winning at WrestleMania 2 alongside Terry. He also made appearances for other major promotions like WCW and ECW. But I want you to listen to this tribute from WWE Chief Content Officer Paul Triple H Levesque. He points out that Dory's rugged in-ring style was only eclipsed by the decades he spent training athletes. And this is exactly where Dory's story takes a fascinating turn, because after achieving everything a performer possibly could inside the ring, he dedicated the entire second half of his life to giving back to the business he loves so much. When you look at his life, honestly, it's like looking at 2 completely separate Hall of Fame careers rolled into one. On one side, you've got the in-ring champion who proved the athletic legitimacy of the sport across the NWA and Japanese circuits. On the other side, you have the master trainer. Back in the 1990s, Dory, alongside his wife Marty, opened a wrestling school in Ocala, Florida. It was first known as the Funkin Dojo, and it later became the Funkin Conservatory. Together, they spent decades shaping the absolute future of global sports entertainment. And when I say he shaped the future, I mean he trained the superstars who defined the modern era for millions of fans. Just think about some of these alumni from the Funkin Conservatory. You've got Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, the legendary tag teams of Edge and Christian and Matt and Jeff Hardy, trailblazers of the women's division like Lita and Mickie James, Ted DiBiase. Dory Funk Jr. essentially bridged the gap between the gritty, old-school territorial wrestling of the 1960s and the glossy, high-flying global television product of the 2000s. His fingerprints are literally all over modern wrestling. But remember, I mentioned earlier that Dory never really stopped wrestling himself, and this next story brilliantly illustrates his absolute, undeniable toughness. So on August 24th, 2024, Dory Funk Jr. laced up his boots for his final match. Keep in mind, he is 83 years old at this point, and he doesn't just have a safe, standard exhibition match. No, he goes to Kawasaki, Japan, and enters a double Hell Current Explosion death match. During this match, an 83-year-old Dory Funk Jr. literally takes a strike from an exploding bat to the back, powers through it, and still wins the match using his legendary spinning toe hold. I mean, it is an almost unbelievable, awe-inspiring climax to a career. A resume like that rightfully earns you a permanent place in history, and he was recognized by every single major institution in the sport. From the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame in '96 to the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and the NWA Hall of Fame. In 2009, both he and Terry were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame by the late, great Dusty Rhodes, making all 3 Funks, Dory Sr., Dory Jr., and Terry, Hall of Famers. But beyond all these plaques and rings, he is remembered as a champion, a true gentleman, and a lifelong ambassador for professional wrestling. So as we wrap up our explainer today, I really want to leave you with this thought. Dory Funk Jr. dedicated over 60 years of his life to a single craft. He mastered it, he innovated it, he taught it to the next generation, and he literally stayed in the ring until his early 80s. That is the very definition of lifelong dedication. It really makes you stop and reflect on your own passions, doesn't it? What is the work you care about so deeply that you would gladly give it 60 years of your life? What legacy are you building today? Thank you so much for joining me to celebrate the incredible life and career of Dory Funk Jr., a champion forever.